On this episode, we discuss the cost of living in Bangkok, which is not what it used to be.
So if you're curious whether Bangkok is really as expensive as they say it is, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 on a quick vacation and once got so lost exploring Thonglor that I hailed a taxi to take me home to Thonglor Soi 13. True story.
You lazy bum.
I was lost and confused and frustrated. I was still new.
I see. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 19 years ago, fell in love with checking the air quality index as soon as I opened my eyes in the morning, and I never left.
That's a good one.
We want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, actually a patron I know quite well, a former student of mine, Gao Bon Sirichut, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking about the cost of living in Bangkok to hear why Gao is our new go-to guy for translation, and how listeners of the podcast can hire him to be their go-to guy for translation too. Before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a whole bunch of cool stuff, including our regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos and videos of our interviews, discounts on swag, which you can find on our website, and various other things that aren't available to regular listeners. But best of all, patrons like Gal also get an unscripted, uncensored, and I mean uncensored, especially this week, bonus episode every week, where we riff on current events and random topics. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about Pornhub's 2019 year in review, which included some interesting statistics on viewing habits in Thailand. I did say uncensored, as well as a rant about the Star Wars TV show The Mandalorian and whether it's bad, good, or great. You'll have to listen in to find out. To become a patron, head to bangkokpodcast.com/support.
Yeah, all right. So for our last episode of the year, we thought it would be interesting to make this the first episode of what will hopefully become our annual cost of living show. Now, as we've mentioned on the show before, and how many of you have noticed as well, I'm sure, Bangkok is not a cheap city anymore. It can be cheap if you know where to go and how to shop and how to eat and don't want everything to be 5-star luxury. But it seems that everything from street food to gasoline to a pint of beer gets a few percentage points more expensive every few months. And this was all confirmed a few weeks ago when a story in the Bangkok Post quoted a report by management consultancy ECA International that said Bangkok is now the 47th most expensive city in the world for expats to live, up 43 places from last year. So Ed, what's your overall impression of this report that says Bangkok is now one of the most expensive cities in the world for expats to live in?
Well, I seem to remember that wherever we were ranked last year, it was also an increase. So I think we've been climbing in the rankings. And I do remember discussing this topic before on the show. And I think this cost of living topic is a very important topic. It's a good topic, but I find it kind of vague. It's like I don't understand how exactly they calculate this. And what I've always said about Bangkok is that it allows people to live at almost any price point.
Right.
So,
yes.
And so this is why I sometimes I don't want to concur with this idea that Bangkok is a really expensive place, because I mean, you kind of said this in the intro, but I feel like there's a lot of cheap options in Bangkok, and I'm not sure those cheap options exist in Tokyo or Oslo. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not sure what. I mean, how do you think they calculate this cost of living, or how do they figure it out? What do you think?
Well, it says here the surveys compare a basket of like-for-like consumer goods and services commonly purchased by assignees in over 480 locations worldwide. So they got like 480 people, and they say, okay, everyone in your city, go and buy a hamburger, go and buy a pair of shoelaces, go and buy a bottle of milk or whatever it is, and they compare that across the board. So one interesting part here is it says that certain living costs, such as accommodation rental, utilities, car purchases, and key, I think, school fees, are usually covered by separate allowances. Data for these costs are collected separately and are not included in ECA's cost of living basket.
Oh, interesting. So it doesn't include the cost of school.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, obviously that doesn't apply to everyone, but it's funny. Like if someone asked me, has Bangkok gotten more expensive over the past year? I would say, yeah, but I would also be hard pressed to give an example. And I feel like it's sort of like the frog in the pot of water thing, where it's like,
Right.
It's being heated up, but you can't really tell the difference from 1 minute to the next or 1 year to the next. But every once in a while, something will jump out and I'll be like, whoa, geez, that is way more than I thought it would be.
I wonder if there has been research done on the cost of street food, because I remember back in the day where I feel like I used to eat street food for like 30 or 40 baht. But now when I go get, pad thai or whatever it is on the street, I feel like I'm paying like 80, 90 baht, like 100 baht. I mean, so I do feel like street food's gotten more expensive.
And it's not only the price, and maybe it's just me getting a bit more like annoying when I'm older, but now I'm like looking into the food, and there's a lot less meat. Like a lot of the expensive ingredients, they're cutting back on. There's a place that I like to eat close to me, and it's khao mo dang, like a red pork and rice plate. And you order it and it's good, but they give you some pretty thinly sliced, skimpy portions of pork. And you're looking at it and you're like, this dish is like 80% rice.
Right.
The rest is like, the stuff. So, the first thing that jumps out at me is beer, because beer, especially craft beer, has gotten crazy expensive. If you go to the wrong place and order the wrong beer, you're paying 400 baht.
Oh yeah,
for a glass of beer, which is like 15, 16 bucks.
Yeah, in a way, that's interesting. I wonder if that factors in. We've talked before about the crazy import taxes on alcohol, and so if Thailand is now importing more alcohol than before, like craft beer, then maybe the average price for beer now has gone up. I mean, I'm guessing that the price of beer Sing or beer Chang probably has stayed relatively flat, or maybe it's risen with inflation. But because there's so much more imported craft beer, like the average beer price has to be much higher.
Yeah, because the demand is higher, right? So the demand is increased, the price goes up. But I also think that there's two reasons why I'm maybe not the best person in the world to keep track of these kind of statistics. Because one, I'm really bad with finance stuff, and I'm not very detail oriented when it comes to this. And two is that I think you and I are similar. We're both very lucky. Is like, if I want to buy some cheese, I'll buy some cheese. I don't look at the price and be like, oh, that's 12 baht more expensive than I wanted it to be, so I'm not going to buy it.
Right.
I think we're very lucky to live a sort of comfortable middle class lifestyle that we don't have to worry about these kind of things. But it's the big things that matter. Plus, it's also all these little things that add up as well. Another thing that I noticed was in the condo that I live in, when we bought our place, I would say the average cost of a condo was say between 4.5 and 5 million baht. And now I see signs outside listing units in the same building, smaller units that were going for like the 4.5 million baht units are now being sold for 6 million baht.
Wow. I mean,
so,
I guess that makes sense. That would go up over time. I don't know. It's strange. I was just going to say that the other thing that I've noticed is I feel like movie tickets. Man, I feel like movies used to be so cheap, and now when you go, it's like 175 baht.
Yeah, that's a really good one. You remember back in the day when you could go, I think it was like Thursday nights, they were like 80 baht each or 60 baht each or something like that.
Yeah.
We sound like a couple of old men now. But
no, but I mean, now I feel like it's approaching 200 baht, and sometimes depending on the night you go, it's like 220 baht, depending on what seat you're sitting in.
Well, when my wife and I go and see a movie on the rare nights that we get out on a date night, we choose to sit in a dark room in silence. But when we go to see a movie, we buy like the honeymoon seats at the back, and it's 800 baht, depending on the theater, 600, 800 baht, for a little sofa.
Right.
Probably still cheaper than it is in the Western countries, but it's still, that's pretty dear.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe the cost of living has gone up just because the Thai middle class is growing, and they demand higher end products. Like, for example, like an upscale cinema, is kind of an upper middle class thing. But again, kind of like the craft beer, it pulls the average price higher.
Yeah, I think that I call that the Starbucksization of the thing, because I think back in the day when you and I first got here, like coffee was 40 baht. That's what it was. And then Starbucks
curious.
became really, really popular, and people were like, wait a minute, we can charge 80 baht or 100 baht for a cup of coffee?
Right,
Well,
right.
we're all going to do that now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so that's why it's very hard to judge cost of living, because on the one hand, you might be saying like, wow, if the cost of living is going up, then things are getting worse. But essentially, it might mean that as it gets more developed, like the cities that tend to have a high cost of living are obviously wealthy places. So, places like Tokyo or New York or Paris or London. So maybe it just means Bangkok is climbing up. Like we're becoming part of the first world.
Yeah, and I think we're overlooking, of course, one really important thing here. And this is a quote from the Bangkok Post story, which is in turn quoting the guy from this consultancy that did this interview. He said, Bangkok, long seen as a cheap destination for holidaymakers and expatriates alike, has seen a huge jump in its rankings, moving the most out of all Asian cities surveyed. This is largely the result of the strong baht.
I've noticed it's funny because people who live here obviously don't complain about the strong baht because we get paid in baht. But for us, it's something that's kind of off the radar, right?
Right.
But it does seem something that tourists are complaining about and people in the tourism industry are complaining about. Just think that Thailand is just not that cheap anymore, and it's just causing more tourists to go to neighboring locations, whether it's Cambodia or Vietnam. It seems like Vietnam's popularity has gone way up.
Yeah, totally. And I've always said if the neighboring countries, like if Cambodia or Vietnam or Malaysia, like if they really get their stuff together and provide the same level of experience for expats as Thailand does, I think Thailand's in trouble. Thailand's got to up their game. I think Thailand's coasted a long time on its beaches and its Sabai-Sabiness and stuff like that, and they haven't really put a lot of work into maintaining that or like investing back into the infrastructure and the resources. So
right,
maybe that's beginning to take its toll too. But one other thing I did was I went to this cost of living calculator, and I compared two cities. I compared Bangkok with Calgary, which is my city, the city I came from in Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
And Calgary is generally considered to be quite an expensive city. So I'm just going to read off a couple of things about how much this would cost in Bangkok and then how much it would cost in Calgary. And there's some interesting things in here. So a McMeal at McDonald's or an equivalent combo meal is 165 baht in Bangkok, 229 baht in Calgary. Domestic beer is 80 baht in Bangkok, 158 baht in Calgary. Cappuccino, 69 baht in Bangkok, 104 baht in Calgary. So we can see that Calgary is a lot more expensive in a lot of things. But for instance, milk in Bangkok, 1 liter of milk is 51 baht in Bangkok and 43 baht in Calgary. So milk is expensive here. 1 kilogram beef round, 411 baht in Bangkok, 338 baht in Calgary. So more expensive in Bangkok. Bottle of wine, 775 baht in Bangkok, 356 baht in Calgary.
Yes, that's got to be one of my biggest complaints about the cost of living. I'm drinking wine right now, and I pay double or more what I'd be paying back home.
Yeah, imported beer, bottle of imported beer is 112 baht in Bangkok, 82 baht in Calgary, so it's expensive here, alcohol tax. Taxi flagfall, 35 baht in Bangkok, 87 baht in Calgary. Taxis are like famously cheap in Bangkok. I think anyone who complains about the prices of taxis here,
right?
Yeah, they still are. Yeah, 1 liter of gasoline in Bangkok, 30 baht in Calgary, 24 baht. So gasoline is expensive. Okay, here's an interesting one: a Volkswagen Golf, 1,400,000 baht in Bangkok, 551,000 baht in Calgary. It's 61% higher to buy it in Bangkok.
Yeah, automobiles and wine. Those are the two things that are way overpriced in Thailand.
Yeah.
That's just a fascinating list because in a way it's kind of all over the board. I feel that in a lot of for a lot of those things, Calgary is more expensive, but then out of the blue, just Thailand seems to be randomly more expensive in a certain subcategories.
It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Whoa, what the hell? Like that's just way more expensive.
Yeah.
So one pair of Levi's 501 jeans, 1,877 baht in Bangkok, 1,400 baht in Calgary. Pair of running shoes, Nike mid-range running shoes, 3,000 baht in Bangkok, 2,200 baht in Calgary.
Yeah, just imported goods. Imported goods are more expensive here. Yeah.
Yeah. Check this out. Price per square meter to buy an apartment in the city center in Bangkok, 163,800 baht. In Calgary, 114,100 baht. So it's 30% more expensive in Bangkok to buy a square meter in the city center.
I believe that because the center of Bangkok is pretty paying.
I mean, it's funny because, like you said, Bangkok, you can go out for dinner in Bangkok and you can spend 50 baht or you can spend $500 easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of its charm, to be honest.
Oh, that's what I like about it. I think there's something for every price point.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating when there's just certain things that you like. In my case, wine. That there's just no way to get it cheap here. There's just no way to do it.
And the last one from this list I thought is interesting. Mortgage interest rate in percentages yearly for 20 years fixed rate, 5.55% in Bangkok, and 3.5% in Calgary.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't know how all these little pieces fit together really, but I can say that Bangkok is not a cheap city. It's an expensive city and it's getting more expensive, but there doesn't seem to be sort of like any standard rhyme or reason. It's just imported things, luxury things that people feel they need, I think are more expensive. And I think part of it is probably because they can be. Like Levo's 501 jeans. Those are things that people will pay for, so we're going to raise the price because we can.
Yeah. I still think, for listeners, I still think that this is a city where you can find a way to live cheaply. I should do more research on. I don't know if there's a different way to measure this stuff. I want to find a list of the best cities to go cheap. The easiest cities to live cheap, because I just think that Bangkok does allow you to do that if you're willing to look.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, today I spent 140 baht. I had a little bit of breakfast at home. I spent about 140 baht on lunch, and I came home and I had some dinner that my mother-in-law made.
Yeah, that's
of
pretty
course
cheap.
I've got stuff surrounding me. I've got a mother-in-law who cooks. And,
right.
But I ate at the mall today, so that's an average day for me, and it's probably not going to be that much more expensive. But if I wanted to, I could have gone and had a nice steak at lunch and a bottle of wine or something like that for work.
Right.
So yeah, but I think the average person, like the average expat who comes here and is like, hey, we're going to move you to our Bangkok office. Boom, here you go. Here's your expensive apartment. It's all paid for. Like someone in that position probably wouldn't know how to live cheaply here, because you need to put effort into finding out how to live cheaply here.
I think that's
because if you want to live conveniently, that's where it becomes more expensive.
Yeah, for sure. I think you need people like us, seasoned expats, basically seasoned expats with no money. That's what you need to know how to live cheaply. Right. You know what I mean? Because it does. You really kind of have to know your way around to find the cheap food and cheap everything. Yeah,
you do.
But the bottom line is it does seem that Bangkok is getting more expensive, at least on average.
So, I mean, there's not a ton to say. Like I said, you and I aren't economists or anything like that. We haven't done a deep dive into the numbers because that would probably just confuse us. Certainly confuse me. But I think just generally overall, Bangkok is just, it is getting more expensive, and it's not a cheap Asian destination. It's an Asian mega city.
That's right.
I think it's reflected in the cost. And I also think that it really matters what type of person you are. Like if you're 25 years old and you come here and you're just like living La Vida Loca, you're probably not going to find it that expensive compared to what it was like back home, because you can live quite cheaply when you're not looking for this stuff. But if you come here with a wife, 2 kids, and you need a car and you need to send them to school and stuff, I mean, your average living cost would spike.
Right.
So it really depends what type of.
Yeah, and you're probably going to be able to live more cheaply back home, at least in a small city.
Right, because you're not going to be paying, $10,000 a year per child to send them to learn how to finger paint.
Right.
at an international school, So
yeah, and then when it comes to the strong baht, if you are a tourist, factor that in. And if you're an expat, or if you're someone thinking of coming to work here, it does matter how you're getting paid. Whether your salary's denominated in baht or your home currency, it's going to affect your spending power. So it's something to look into.
Totally. So it is not a cheap city. And one last thing too. You know what I noticed the other day? I usually fill up at the Shell because I drive a car. I fill my car up at the Shell gas station. Just around the street, around the corner from my condo, because it's super convenient. But I pulled in there the other day, and they only have an expensive type of gasoline now. I think it was 10 baht per liter more than what it was the week before when I went there, and that's the only option they had.
Huh.
Again, I'm not one of those guys. It's like, what am I going to say? Like, ooh, it's too expensive now. I'm just not going to drive anymore. Like, yeah, I'm going to fill my car up.
Yeah.
So, but it is getting expensive. When my tank is dry, it costs me 2,000 baht to fill up my tank.
Gouging, man. You're getting gouged.
Yeah, but it is pretty nice to have a car. Yeah, that's it. I would say it's not a cheap city. It is getting more expensive, but luckily, I think it still can be a city that's cheap to live in, but you need to work at it.
Agreed.
All right, well, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of life in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And this week, it is my turn.
All right,
Ed, I'm sure you've traveled around the world a bit, and you've met people from all over the world, and I'm sure you've gotten to know some French people, and they do the double kiss on the cheek when they say hello and goodbye, which is sometimes a little bit awkward for North Americans. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that actually just happened to me last week. It hasn't happened in a while, but that happened to me last week.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the thing that is very common in Thailand, which is the sniff kiss? You know what I'm talking about?
Interesting. I do know about it. It's funny. For some reason, when I first got to Thailand, I read something about it in like Lonely Planet, right?
Right.
And I remember the first girl I dated, I asked her about it, and so she would do it, But I think she was kind of humoring me,
Oh yeah.
What's your take? I feel like, other than reading about it here and there, and kind of, I feel like it's just not that common. Am I wrong?
No, I would agree. It's not common, but it's certainly more common than it would be back home. And for those that don't know, a sniff kiss is when usually a female friend would put their nose up against your cheek and just like inhale, sniff your cheek really, really deeply.
Yeah, and it's really it's an affectionate kind of cute thing. It sounds a little bit weird. It sounds like someone smelling you as if they're trying to check you out, but it's not like it's not like that. It's not like that.
It's kind of like the Eskimo kiss, where you rub the ends of your noses.
Yeah, it's a little
together.
bit like that. It's funny. I just haven't thought about it in a long time. I'm gonna go love. I think it's great. I love it. But the bottom line is, I can't remember the last time I experienced a sniff kiss. So Greg, next time you see me, if you're in the right mood and you just want to give me a sniff kiss, you can go for it. I won't read anything into it, dude.
I just don't want to hear the phrase "I got razor burn" from the last time Greg sniffed kissed me. I'm with you. I love it. I think it's cute, and it's when someone, it sounds weird from a foreign perspective.
It does,
but when it happens to you, you're like, oh, that's cute.
That's right. There's something just kind of childishly warm about it.
Yeah, it's very whimsical.
Yeah.
So I think we're both love on that one.
Thumbs up on the sniff kiss.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Gao for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. And Greg, what did you find out about Gao?
Well, as you mentioned, Ed, Gao is one of your former students. Is that right?
That is correct. Very smart guy.
Yeah, and we met him at the meetup that we had a few weeks back. Really cool guy, very nice to talk to. And I was chatting with him today online, and I thought this would be fun to mention here, just as a little test, because he is a translator. And you had mentioned that he is a very literate person, a very smart, on the ball guy. So I said, "Hey, Gal, can you do me a favor? Can you translate this phrase for me?" And I sent him the phrase that has confounded a lot of Thai people from a movie that I'm sure you'll know. "I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm fresh out of bubblegum." You know that movie? You know what that's from?
What is that? Is that like Commando or something like that?
No, it's from They Live with Rowdy
Oh.
Roddy Piper.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay. I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a few minutes later, dude came through, man. He checked this out. "ฉันมาที่นี่เพื่อเคี่ยวหมักฝรั่งแล้วก็แดดดูดพวกแกและตอนนี้ฉันก็เพิ่งเคี่ยวหมักฝรั่งหมด."
Great.
I probably completely butchered that because I was reading,
But how
the
do we
English
know? How do
transliteration.
we know if that's accurate, though?
Well, he said it is. "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick your asses, and now I just finished chewing the last one." But
That's
the thing,
great.
yeah, it was great. So kudos to Gal for doing that, because a lot of Thais have been like, "What does that even mean?" So he got that. But check this out. The thing that most impressed me about Gal, he also said, "Is this from the movie They Live?"
Oh, really? He knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how old is he? What is he, like mid-20s or something like
Yeah,
that?
mid-20s. Yeah.
Mid-20s. Mid-20 Thai kid knows a 1988 John Carpenter B movie with a WWF wrestler as a star. Dude is on the ball.
No doubt. He's one of my former students. What can I say? He's got to be on the ball.
He was well taught.
That's right.
And yeah, so Gal actually asked him, I said, "Hey, what kind of stuff do you want us to talk about on the show for your shout out?" And he said, "If it doesn't sound inappropriate, a shout out of my services would be splendid. If anyone is looking for writing or translation, English to Thai or Thai to English, then I am up for it." And you can get him on facebook.com/gculturalex. That's GCULTURALEX. So as you can see, he's an excellent translator. He takes into account more than just the language. He also understands the context.
I can recommend him highly.
Yeah. And I was glad we met him at the meetup. He's a really, really nice guy, really cool guy. And as you can see, anyone out there listening, if you need someone who is on the ball and really gets it in terms of translation, Gal's your man. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. Thanks, Gal.
Thanks, Gal. All right, a final thanks to all of our patrons who help keep the show ad-free. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, you can also listen to each episode on YouTube, chat with us online, or even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. And this is the last show of 2019, so Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next year.
Absolutely. Happy New Year. Test. Hello.
Oh, I want to get another beer, but I haven't had anything to eat tonight, so maybe I won't. It's not a good idea.